Today on Empowered and Well, we're sitting down with Dr. Sarah Lane. By day, Sarah is a vision therapist and the doctor behind Focus Center for Vision and Learning in Spring Lake Heights, where she helps children and adults work through vision and developmental challenges that go way beyond 20/20 eyesight. We're talking about things like eye tracking, focusing, and how vision connects to learning behavior and the whole body. But this conversation isn't really going to be focused on the eye chart. This year, Sarah took on the 29029, I hope I'm saying that right, 29029 Everesting challenge. 36 hours on a mountain, climbing the vertical equivalent of Mount Everest one lap at a time at Mont Tremblant. That meant 15 laps and over 25 miles of hiking, earning her second red hat.
Yes. So Sarah has also spent years immersed in Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, going through his trainings herself and now helping at his events. And you can feel that mindset work all over how she talks about this challenge. Side note, I've been able to work with Sarah for many, many months leading up to this and also kind of get some insight into her mindset and thought process. So I'm excited for her to share about that. So we're going to talk about what it actually looks like to get to the finish line of the 29029 challenge, how that Dispenza practice shaped her on the mountain, the nutrition and strength work we did together this year, and the moment on lap 8 in the middle of the night when a stranger named Jolene became the reason that she kept going. So, Sarah, thank you for being a yes, for being on Empowered and Well. Thank you for being here.
No problem. It's always an honor to share and collaborate with other women out there sharing great information. And
yeah. So before we get into all the things that we want to talk about, Amanda and I like to do a little bit of like this or that rapid fire type of question. So that is information that you did not have ahead of time. So are you game to do a little bit of this or that?
Sure. Let's go.
All right. Amanda, you want me to kick it off?
Go for it.
All right. So this one, we'll go easy. Trekking poles or bare hands?
I used trekking poles at 29029, but I never trained with them and have never hiked with them before. It just kind of came up as that recommendation for doing such a long endurance event. So I guess it depends on the activity. I would never take trekking poles out for just like a random hike, but for the endurance event, definitely use them.
Okay, this one spoke right to me. Dispenza meditation or a hard workout? Which one resets you faster?
Oh, man, over the years, like that's really a combination, to be honest with you. Like I really prepare, like, in the 5 minutes before logging in, for this recording, like I do my, Dispenza centering, like a little heart opening, heart centering, meditation. But I also knew that before I sat down, I needed to do my workout this morning. So I really don't think it's like an either or. It all depends on like how much time I have. If I have 5 minutes and I need to get there, I'm going to turn on my heart centering meditation. I got that hour, I'm going to do a workout.
Love it.
Would you choose 20/20 vision or 20/20 hindsight?
Oh, man. So this is a big semantics thing in my world. So there's a big difference between 20/20 eyesight, which is like, can I see the teeny tiny letters on the letter chart? And then what is vision? So vision is really how you use what you see, is kind of what my definition of the visual process is. And I got into the world of optometry first as a patient. Like I struggle with 20/20 eyesight. Like I have a very high prescription and have since I was young. And I don't necessarily see clearly in like the traditional sense of like what somebody would think it means to see clearly. Like I struggle with little teeny tiny letters. Like I don't see the 20/20 letters on the chart. But I really emphasize in how I live my life and how I interpret the world that like I can take in all of that information to guide me and give me context and feel at ease with the visual world around me. So I don't know if that directly answered your question or not, but 20/20, yeah, the hindsight piece, I think is definitely more important to me than like the direct acuity in the moment.
Nice. You answered.
Okay.
I'm going to do a really light one now. Coffee or tea? What's your pleasure?
I have tea every single morning. It definitely is my go-to. It is a black tea with caffeine. And I also, drink tea several times a day if I'm working from home. So I guess tea is my go-to, but I do enjoy coffee.
All right. Let's do one more each and then we'll get into it. So would you rather hike Everest vertical equivalent again or run a marathon blindfolded?
Oh my goodness, I would do an Everesting in a moment. And as my coach, I don't run. Like there's like running is just not something I'm necessarily willing to do yet. I don't know if it's ever going to come out. Um, but yeah, I don't do the running piece. I think the longest I've run in both of the trainings that I did for this year and last year was like a minute. Did I do like intervals where I walked a minute, ran a minute? Yes, but like 1 minute at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really curious about this one, and I know that it will probably come up as we start to dive into like the meat of our conversation. But would you rather train with Dr. Joe Dispenza or race alongside Jolene again?
Um, I think I would take the accompaniment of someone like Jolene. I think it brings it into real life.
Yeah.
What does it mean to put that all into practice? Like to be fully present and to be coherent with another human being, like in that moment, is definitely something that I'm I've prepared for, right? You have to maintain an awareness of what it means to be present and find that like relationship in the middle of the mountain. But yeah, I would definitely take that over more like professional training.
And I love like being in the endurance sports space because even though it's a challenge versus a race, any of it, I found that when you're racing, you always end up interacting or finding someone along the way, especially the longer the event is and you had 36 hours out there where you just know that you were where you were supposed to be at that time for that person. And it's such a cool moment to feel that over a long day when you like find that person.
Yeah, I love that you chose that phrase, like you are where you're supposed to be, because that's actually something that I tell myself like all the time. Like basically every step I take, every interaction that I have, like I am where I'm supposed to be. Even if it's like at the grocery store and I see the random person and I start up a conversation or whatever, I tell myself that I am where I'm supposed to be. So what am I supposed to be paying attention to? And it's all there for a reason. So
Yeah, 100%. So thank you for playing along with that.
no problem. That was fun.
Yeah. Can you tell our listeners and us a little bit about what you do at Focus Center, what vision therapy is? I know we kind of alluded to that a little bit and what led you into it.
Yeah, of course. So my office, which I'm actually in my therapy room right now, is a place where I practice optometry. So I am a licensed optometrist. So I'm an eye doctor. But I really don't see primary care patients. I don't see people who are only coming in for glasses or who have eye disease or things like that. I see people who have learning issues, developmental issues that are impacting like how their visual system is developing. Many of the people I work with do see 20/20 eyesight without lenses. And so there's not necessarily like a refractive error, meaning they're not nearsighted or farsighted. But I'm developing programs and working with them to enhance their visual skills. Like I said before, how they interact with the things that they see. Um, I got involved in the sport world of vision therapy as a patient as well. When I started optometry school, I was getting headaches every day, and I could, go to I noticed that I could go to class and look at the slides that were on the screen, or I could look at my notes, but I couldn't switch back and forth without getting an excruciating headache. So, as first year optometry students, we were required to have an eye exam. It's called the Eye Institute at the Pennsylvania College of Optometry. And I remember the fourth year student doing my exam was like sweating bullets because I couldn't produce the same like result twice. Like my visual system was just not functioning well at all. And I was recommended to do vision therapy, which at that time I had no idea what was. I entered optometry school thinking optometry was glasses and contact lenses. Like I didn't know much more about it. So I went through vision therapy, guided by students and some of my mentor doctors, and got rid of my headaches. And that, one of the doctors, Dr. Mike Galloway, kind of took me under his wing and helped me develop my internship programs to really focus on vision therapy at that time. So it's kind of started as me as the patient and then evolved into definitely a passion that I feel like I can understand where my patients are coming from and develop those programs that are not just about the activity or the exercise, but more of the process of learning how to use vision better.
So cool. So I'm wondering, like, because of this background and all that you've been through yourself, the way like you're connecting with clients and with like the people that you work with, does anything that you think about vision, so like attention focus, the brain body connection, does any of that show up in how you approach training for the Everesting challenge?
Absolutely. I think at every turn of the way, I'm always focused on what's at the foundation. So when it comes to my patients, I'm focused on what's at the foundation of them developing their visual skills. And that's nervous system regulation, and that's body movement coordination, bilateral coordination, rhythm. All of those things are what I teach in my office with the people that are that have asked for me to guide them. And so when I'm training for an event like 29029, like I know every step of the way, I've got to maintain an organization of all of those pieces. Like if I lose the nervous system regulation, if I lose my bilateral coordination or my balance or my rhythm, like I'm going to hurt myself, or I'm going to fall or I'm going to trip or that rock's going to slip me up or I'm going to get in my head and feel like, I can't do this. I can't go on. Like I feel that in my body, like that means there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong if you stay in that like regulated space. So it definitely comes up, years ago, I also trained as a yoga teacher, almost 20 years ago now. So I always said I was never able to be a yoga teacher without being an optometrist. And now I'm not able to be an optometrist without also having that background as a yoga teacher. And on the mountain hiking, I'm like, I happen to be a yogi that has done a couple endurance events. Like, so it all comes together. But, I really do at every turn of the way come back to that foundation of what does it take to do anything. And that is the mindset and the regulation.
Yeah. So for anybody who's listening, because I take for granted that I am very familiar at this point with the 29029 challenge, for anyone who has no idea about it and is just picking up on these little context clues of what we're talking about, can you elaborate a little bit more on what it entails, where it happens, and just some of the basics around it?
Yeah, so the 29029 events happen at different mountains around the country. So they basically choose a mountain that has enough elevation gain to have a reasonable amount of laps that you could hike repeatedly and take a gondola down to equal the elevation of Everest. So my husband was the first one who kind of got involved in the 29029 events, and he's participated in events that were at Stratton and Snow Basin and Sun Valley and Jackson Hole. And then we were at Mont Tremblant this year. So it's a community of people that comes together to really challenge physically and mentally. It's a different kind of event. It has a different vibe than, what I could imagine comes from some of the other more race-oriented events where they don't keep track of your time other than you've got 36 hours to finish. So if you are one of the first people to finish, like, okay, yeah, you ran up the mountain and you showed your physicality, but like the event is more about like leaving it all out on the mountain. And what does it take to keep going?
Yeah. How many people, because I don't know if we ever really talked about this in our conversations, how many people are typically taking part? Because I know it's not easy for just anyone to go onto the website now and be like, oh, I want to do 29029. So
right.
Obviously I was like, no, I want to do 29029. But how many people are typically taking part? Do you know?
I think at Mont Tremblant this year, it was around 345-ish. So between 340 and 350. And you start off all together in a big group of people, and very quickly it spaces out. It never feels like the mountain is crowded at all. So
it's crazy.
Everybody moves at their own pace.
Man, this sounds like an event for endurance athletes to me. It sounds so challenging. Are you willing to walk us kind of through the race day and what it actually feels like to do 15 laps in 36 hours on a mountain.
Yeah, I can tell you, I never really thought that it was going to be something that I did. Like I said, my husband got involved first. I would see him train and I would see him do the events, and then my son Joshua actually did an event as well. And then the following year, after Joshua completed his first one, a friend came to me and said, like, hey, I'm looking to do something challenging. She's an old marathon. She's, had run marathons in the past and things. And I was like, okay, sure, I guess I'll do this. Um, so I do say I kind of got roped in, but I believe I can do anything I want to do. So I put in the training and did the work, and then I got there. So on the day of the events, I'm not a nervous person. Like, I really truly believe that, like, starting things from that, like, grounded, open, calm space, I'm going to be more successful. So there's definitely like a nervous energy on the mountain amongst the people, I think, who are like used to that kind of race mentality. Like, am I going to do this? Am I going to do good enough? Am I going to be able to hike fast enough? Like, for me, I just tell myself, like, I'm going to hike like for a long time, one step at a time, and we're going to get to the end. I don't really tell myself any of the crazy things that would get me like nervous. So, but it's intense. Like, I mean, the first couple laps feel great. It's early in the morning, the sun's not like super hot on you. And then the next, laps this year, laps 5 and 6 were like the messy middle was what they call it, right? Like, is this actually going to happen? Why in the world did I do this? I never want to do it again type of thing. But then you push through, and I think that's the lesson, that everybody gets who participates in these events. It's like the story you tell yourself can take over at any moment. And that's one of the things I say to my patients all the time in here too. Like, they tell me like, I can't do that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not the true story. You don't want to do that, so let's tell ourselves something. And if we decide we want to do it, we can do it. So one step at a time, one breath at a time, anything can happen. So that's what I tell myself as I'm out there on the mountain. And a couple of the coaches, would comment like, Sarah's got the best attitude of anybody on the hill, because it's like, I'm still like moving, and sometimes I move in a rhythmic way, right? Because Lauren would say like, my Zumba and my yoga are non-negotiable parts of my training, which some people laugh at. Like, how can you train for an endurance event going to Zumba and belly dance? But like at the core, at the foundation, like those are huge to me for mindset, and also like those little teeny tiny muscles that create stability everywhere in your body. Like, those I worked out in a very fun and engaging way all throughout my training. So there were definitely a couple laps where like I put my music in and, I'm doing some salsa steps or some toe taps, like to my music, like consistent with what I would do in a dance class. And, there's people going by me fast, who think they got to get to the top fast, but then I see them at the aid station. They're just waiting, resting. And I'm like, yeah. And I just keep going one step at a time, like trying to take as little bit of rest as I can, but hiking in a way that I can always do it again.
I love that you did Zumba and belly dancing, and that does translate to endurance training. I say this often to people who are, again, whether you're doing an endurance event or you're coming and you just want to get into the gym and work out, and people ask like, oh, what should I do for cardio? What should I do for this? I'm like, do what brings you joy, do what gets you moving, because it's still going to have some carryover. And while Zumba might not get your heart rate up the same way hiking up Everest
Right.
maybe would have, but you're laterally moving and moving in different planes of motion that some people who maybe were just going and walking up and down the Stairmaster, walking treadmills, hiking, or just doing things in that sagittal plane. Like, so you really did have that benefit. And I know that was something that was a big takeaway for you from when you did Jackson Hole, your first 29029, to doing Mont Tremblant. Is there anything else, if you look back from your first challenge to this year, that either you learned and you did differently, or just anything overall that felt different on, your take two?
Yeah. I mean, the first time, I was prepared. I was, ready physically. I did experience some womanly things happen right as I started the event in Jackson Hole. So that was a challenge there. But I still push through one step at a time. This year I did not have that happening, but I also trained in a very different way, thanks to your input, Lauren, and like really recognizing that I needed to be eating differently, the encouragement to track, what I was eating, which I was very resistant to in the beginning, um, really gave me a lot of insights as to how to treat my body, as the machine. I was asking my body to do a lot of things that I wasn't necessarily preparing it for in that nutrition standpoint. So this year I focused a lot on that. And on the day of the challenge, also knew I had a plan, that I could follow, and how many calories or what did I need to eat that was going to satisfy my body in a way to keep going. And I didn't worry about it. I just knew I had a plan. So the first time around, I didn't necessarily have that same plan. Um, so I do feel like that was a big difference this year for me. That took away that stress of like, what am I going to eat? I'm like, no, I'm just going to do this at every lap. And, you know,
Can't outtrain a bad diet. Amanda's heard me say that too.
yeah, I'm eating very different than I ever have before. Discovering what actually makes my body feel good. Like I enjoy great food. Do I need like, a culinary experience every single day? Absolutely not. So I can eat very boring because it's going to fuel my body and be totally fine with that. My husband doesn't 100% think of things the same way. He's like, how could you eat that again? I'm like, I don't know. It's the fuel. I'm just filling the gas tank. I don't really care what it tastes like.
Same.
Oh man, I love that because I work with Lauren too, and Lauren's changed in the past only week or two. Really, the way that I'm looking at the way that I feel my body too, and like
Yeah.
realizing that I was completely under fueling.
Yeah.
It's already changed my workouts in a week.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was that fasted workout. Like I never even realized, like getting up early in the morning to do like a 5:30, 5 a.m. workout, which that's when I first met Lauren, was at one of those local studios around here. And it was the only time I felt like I could get there was that early in the morning. But those were all fasted workouts. I'd have a little bit of water, roll out of bed at 4:30 and get there at 5. Like I just think that was crazy for what my body actually needed. And so now to know that before I do any workout, I'm going to break my intermittent fast if I'm going to work out that early. Like it's just not, like my body needs the calories to fuel that workout. Even if like, I've had in my head that I'm not supposed to eat from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning. Like that's just not good for me. It wasn't working. So I'm happy that I developed that mindset and that knowledge, really, even though I have a ton of educational background in food science and diet and things like that. Uh, Putting it into practice for my own body has definitely been a different experience.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'll tell you, I feel so connected to you because I'm also a yoga instructor. I don't know if Lauren told you that. So, like,
Yeah.
everything that you're saying is reminding me how all of these foundations really can work in all parts of our lives. And I love that. And a lot of my clients talk to me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, have you ever heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza? Have you ever tried this meditation? And I'm like, yes, I'm a huge fan. So it was really cool to find out like what you did, like what you've been doing. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you first found his work? What took you really from attending events to being part of his Inner Health Coalition, to volunteering at the events?
Yeah. So I had a book club several years ago. I want to say like maybe 6-ish years ago, where a friend of mine suggested that we read the book called The Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And we worked through that book, and we read the book. I had never heard of Joe Dispenza prior to, my friend suggesting that we read this book. I hadn't necessarily started to like put all the meditations into practice. I wasn't necessarily practicing every day. And then my husband got a diagnosis that needed significant attention and had him in the hospital for several weeks. And through another friend, he was gifted that same book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And he dove into that book while he was in the hospital, and really worked to shift his mindset. It wasn't the first medical issue he dealt with. So one of the questions that I asked him, kind of with the experience of having read that book, was like, the diagnosis isn't necessarily like the biggest issue here. It's like, what about your body allowed this to happen? So sometimes that can be interpreted as like, I'm blaming my body, or what did I do to create this to happen? And he didn't really interpret things that way, which I'm thankful for. We definitely need the medical attention and the medical interventions, but like working on the mindset has led to much more success in like everyday life. So my husband was the first one to really dive into the Dr. Joe work, and read all the books. And he was the first one to attend events. The Dr. Joe events have thousands of people, which I was not necessarily feeling drawn to attend an event with thousands of people. I'm like, I'm a yoga teacher. I'll go to a silent meditation retreat and sit in the corner by myself for a week. But I don't need to be around thousands of people. But after my husband had been to a few different events, he really encouraged me to attend an event. And so I say my husband sent me to Cancun for, a week-long retreat with Dr. Joe. That's not a bad thing. And I was still really apprehensive when I first went. I was like, it was the first time I was actually traveling for like a conference type of thing where I wasn't going to learn a technique that I was then going to teach to people. So I really kind of changed my mind at that event. I'm like, I'm not going to take a single note. I am just going to sit here. I'm going to be present. I'm going to take it all in and kind of see what happens. And by kind of taking that step back and noticing, like, I am where I'm supposed to be, what's showing up around me, like, of those thousands of people, like the same couple of people kept showing up in my space. So I've developed some really close friendships with people that I met in those first couple of moments of the events, actually. So that's been really great. And after that first event, I came home and, Dr. Joe always says something like, you feel super great at an event. You're meditating hours a day. Why would you stop? That's what he always says. So, I come home and, try to integrate in the different, the meditations and sitting and just regulating the nervous system and noticing when you get out of coherence, right? When your body is, not aligned, your mind's not aligned, and how quickly can you develop the ability to come back to that coherence that you found during those meditations. So after I attended a couple events, I submitted my application to become part of what's called the Inner Health Coalition, which as a healthcare provider, they teach us and kind of give us a blessing to share our work one-on-one with our patients. So I feel confident that when I'm working with a patient, if I want to bring something up that's consistent with Dr. Joe's work, I've learned it in a way that I can be consistent with how he teaches it, and then also share some different resources that I have access to by being part of that coalition. And after that, then I submitted my application to volunteer, which there's a big group of people who, choose to serve at the events. And they're a big part of it and holding the space for the participants. Yes, you have paid staff in the organization of an event with thousands of people, but the volunteers are really the ones kind of like boots on the ground, so to speak, sitting in the crowd with the participants, like keeping really a tap on, who's there and who needs what and what kind of support. So that was really a very interesting experience, very different than being a participant at an event, but also extremely rewarding.
It's so amazing. I love his work and his writings. And one thing that he shared, which I'm guessing you've probably heard his story, which is wild because a lot of the things that he talks about is really the power of your mind and the power of your belief also, and not just what's the situation I'm in, but how, again, like how you're interpreting it. And I might mess up some of these details, so you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, about how he had actually raced triathlon and was in a really bad accident while racing and was told that he was never going to walk again.
Right.
And he, in my own words, I'll say, is like refused to believe that that was actually what his fate was, and was able to, obviously he's walking, he's inspiring, guiding, mentoring thousands upon thousands of people. And it's so freaking cool to me that you get to be somewhat of a vessel, we'll say, of being able to utilize what he teaches. And I mean, if anybody listening is not familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, I would highly encourage you to check it out, even like listen to a little podcast of him talking on it, because again, I could hear it come out in the way that you speak with things that you've gone through with your husband, or with, being out there with doing the 29029 challenge. So what a cool blessing, I'll call it, that you've had, being able to do the work. And then I'm curious, like, with all the things that you've learned through being like a volunteer and doing his work, how did it show up for you out on the mountain during either of your challenges?
It shows up every moment. So I mentioned before some of the close relationships I've made through the Dr. Joe community. And one of them is this woman, her name is Tatiana. And we volunteered at one of the events together. And after the event, we both, we shared with each other, like these two phrases, like, I am satisfied with my efforts, right? Which is something that Dr. Joe says as well. But at every opportunity to reflect, like, I'm satisfied with my efforts. Like instead of telling yourself like, oh, I've got so much more to do, or I could have done better, like, I am satisfied with my efforts. And just to like tell myself that, like, every step is a satisfaction. Um, and then the other thing that, after that one event with Tatiana, we're discussing our experience as volunteers. And she's like, I really realized that I only have two states. I'm either coherent or I'm not. Like, there's not a whole lot of room in the middle. And so that has really resonated with me as well. So if I can maintain that state of coherence, which just is really, I think, the feeling and the deep knowing that I am where I'm supposed to be. Like, there's nothing else I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that's definitely something I've cultivated by being part of the Dr. Joe community, and just, consistently being around people who are talking and speaking that way and kind of living their lives from that perspective. And not to say that every moment is perfect, or that every moment is a perfectly coherent situation, but like, how quickly do you get back to that space, knowing that that's truly where you want to be and where things can actually happen in an easier way.
I'm so.
Oh, go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Lauren. You go for it.
All right, fine. I'll go for it. I'm like, I asked the last question, but all right, I'll go. So something that's come up, and this has come up even when you were sharing about your experience on the this last 29029, and probably in our own conversations, where you talk about unproductive thoughts creeping up, specifically when you're getting towards that like back end of the climb of the Everesting. So what does it take for you to like shift those thoughts? And again, I know we've kind of been touching upon this, but I feel like when you're at, and this is whether you're doing a 29029, if you're doing a 70.3, any sort of long race, you are going to get to a point where you question everything, and where like, and even just to back up a little bit, I had in one of my conversations with an athlete, she was like, we were talking about like the mental callous it takes, because physically, you can go on, like, but mentally you're like, I can't, I don't want to, like, and it's like, there's so many thoughts that your mind could just physically make you stop. But so how do you work through that?
Yeah. I mean, the 29029 events, like the first one, I didn't know exactly how it was going to go, and I moved slow. And it became apparent that if I didn't hike all night, I was not going to finish. So I did 3 of those laps in the middle of the night in Jackson, Wyoming by myself. There was only like 3 or 4 people out the whole night. And, it was the most amazing part of the event for me, though. I literally felt like I could take the stars out of the sky. And to feel like held and safe out in the middle of the woods, like by myself, was like something I hadn't ever really experienced. And it actually took me back to my childhood. I grew up in northern Vermont, where we would go out in the woods in the middle of the night, a group of us, with like maybe a flashlight, but maybe not. We had paths that we would run with the rocks and everything. So it really did take me back to that feeling really super safe in the woods. But so So this year at Mont Tremblant, like I wasn't attached to how it was going to look. I was just going to keep going. And I did end up hiking all night again, with the exception of being off the mountain from 3 to 4 a.m. For a quick shower and lay down for 20 minutes. But I didn't tell myself a crazy story about, whether that was going to make or break my event. I'm like, I'm just going to keep moving. I'm going to keep doing it and do what it takes. And, it was at that lap 8, which was as the sun went down. It was like the first dark lap. It wasn't dark when I started, but it was dark in the middle. And, those unproductive thoughts of like, I'm out here all by myself. Like, what the heck is going on? Why did I do this again? I'm alone. I don't want to be alone. My son was actually out there on the mountain as well, but like he'd gone to bed. Like he didn't start another lap when I did that one at night. He went to bed because he was a couple laps ahead of me, and he hikes at a different pace, and it was totally fine. I knew that was going to happen, but I still started tracing through those unproductive thoughts. And then I met Jolene in the middle of the mountain. And, it's always one of those things, like she's also hiking by herself in the dark. And it's like, okay, does this person want to talk to me, not want to talk to me? And I just kind of said to her, I'm having some unproductive thoughts here. Do you mind if I just kind of like dump a teensy bit on you? And so we just talked the whole rest of that lap 8, and just kind of like, as women in the same, age bracket, same physicality, like same mindset, like I'm out here and I'm going to complete this event, and I'm going to move at my pace, and I'm going to go one step at a time. And we just completely jived with how we were going to do it, and made the commitment like then, like, we're just going to do what it takes, So we did finish lap 8 together. We did lap 9 and 10. We finished lap 10 around 2:30 in the morning. And there's actually a picture. They had to have had like "We Will Rock You" or something like that playing at the summit of the mountain, and we are just both like rocking out. My husband like had made a playlist that he sent to me that was like the exact length of like what it was taking me to hike a lap. And so I said to her at the bottom of lap 10, I said, we're going to turn on this playlist. I have no idea what music is going to come. So he had things in that playlist like the Frozen song, like "Let It Go." So we're like singing in the middle of the mountain, and like a song from Joseph, an Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, like totally crazy songs that you would never put in like your workout playlist. But they took us into that place of like laughter and joy of like, oh my gosh, am I really going to sing along to this song?
Yep.
And that carried us through for that lap 10. We got to the top. And then we took a little bit of a rest. But we were back out on the mountain at 4 a.m. for lap 11, because we also knew that the temperature was going to get so hot, so we had no issue like doing the laps before the sun came up, because as soon as that sun came up, it got really hot. So we both completed. And, I say I'm not sure if I would have been able to push through all of that if I had not met Jolene, and she says the same about me. So now we're, we don't live far apart from each other. So that was actually really nice to find out as well. So, a hiking buddy, somebody with the same mindset as well. Like, I am not out here racing. I am here to like leave it all out on the mountain, one step at a time. And, we're actually both healthcare professionals as well. So we knew we were going to finish the event. Yeah. We were not attached to how long those last couple of laps took us in the heat of the day. So there was a lot of people who were struggling, on those last couple of laps, and people who needed somebody to sit with them for a second and kind of help to re-regulate. And, it is always hard for me to turn that healthcare professional thing off, even in that context. Like, I do feel like I can observe things a little different than somebody who doesn't have that kind of like emergency medical tech training. So I did sit with some people, and that was one of the most memorable parts of the event as well. Like I said, I knew I was going to get my red hat. Taking 5 minutes with somebody who's still out there really struggling is that human connection. And that's honestly what I feel the 29029 events are more about, is developing that connection and developing that strong mindset of like, we are all out here together. Like, we're going to get to whatever our Everest means, whether that's a red hat or whether that's, a couple laps or what. Like, it's all celebrated for you meeting your edge, wherever that is.
I have an idea of how you might answer this, but I'm still going to ask it anyway because I want to know. Because I'm somebody who, like, knowing Lauren for a while, I'm amazed at the things that she physically does. Now, Sarah, I'm like blown away by what you've physically done. So I don't think I would ever be able to do what either of you do. So if somebody else listening, I know Lauren just, for those of you who are listening and not watching, Lauren just shook her finger at me because she thinks I'm full of baloney because I've done a lot of things already physically that I never thought I could. But if anybody listening thinks that a challenge like this is out of reach for them as well, what would you say to somebody?
I go back to like, do you want to? Like when people are like, I was like, I feel like I can do anything I want to do. Like that is one of my core beliefs. So if I decide I want to, like I'm going to do the work for what needs to happen. I'm not going to show up unprepared, right? There's a lot of work that goes into it. I'm not going to show up and be like, yeah, just because I want to, it's going to magically happen. No, like it's the opportunity to work towards something that you truly and genuinely want. So that's the main thing is like deciding that you really, really want it and working towards it. And I think that that goes far beyond 29029 or any kind of endurance event, and I feel like I'm the sometimes very frustrating for my children in that deeply held belief that I can do anything I want to do because I'm constantly learning and constantly challenging myself, into new spaces because I want to. So I think that that's the biggest takeaway is, and I say to my patients too, is like, what your true story is like, I don't want to, I don't feel like it. Like, the truth is you don't want to, right? It's not that you can't, because you could if you decided that you wanted to.
Boom.
That's so
Like,
true.
So something that comes up, well, actually, let me backtrack. I hope that anybody, like if your children are like, oh, they don't like, I hope they want to be like you in that mindset. Like, even if it drives
we'll see. There,
crazy, right? That it's like, that's such a great way to be that like, heck yeah, anything I want to do, I can do. And now for anybody who's listening who has done a major endurance event, I'm going to assume can relate to this idea, this sentiment that when you complete something that has taken up a massive amount of space in your brain, in your weekly schedule, in the energy that you have to give to anything throughout the week, you complete it. It's freaking awesome. You got your red hat. You've crossed for if it's a race, you cross the finish line. And all of a sudden, it's like some people feel this emptiness and this, oh, now I don't, where's my, it's almost like your identity, your purpose. So for you, kind of twofold, what's next and how do you handle that either like identity shift, if we want to call it that, or that void maybe that comes with completing such a huge event?
yeah, I don't know what's next. I don't know if I need to do another 29029 event. My younger son, who's 15, he'll be 16 next year, says he wants to do it. Will I get roped in again to
If I want to
maybe,
do it, you might get roped again because I would need to do
maybe, I don't know.
it.
Like I probably could get roped in again because I believe I can do it. Like, sure, I could do it. Like, what's the big deal? But I think in the daily, like I don't come home telling myself like I need to go sign up for an Ironman or I'm going to run a marathon. Like that's not my mindset. Like I said, I'm a yogi who can do an endurance event if I get roped in by a friend. But from a daily standpoint, like I've learned so much about my body, having decided that I was going to do these events, like the power, like the strength that I have, like by, weightlifting 3 days a week, which was totally outside of what I thought I wanted to do or could do. Now I realize like how much better I feel, like in doing that 29029 event, like I didn't have any like pain in any joint. My feet were a little bit sore. My lower legs were like those muscles were definitely, there was evidence that they had been used, but like no knee pain, no hip pain, no back pain, like no little twinge that told me there was anything wrong. Which to me is absolutely amazing. So I don't know why I would stop with, kind of the lifestyle that incorporates developing and maintaining strength. So now, but it is like, okay, I don't need to work out 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest piece is like, going from like spending 3 to 4 hours a day working out in the variety of different things. Like, okay, I don't necessarily need to do that every day. Um, but it's not a burden to me to like live that lifestyle that is very active and promotes like the mindset piece by going to yoga and the flexibility and then the Zumba, the fun and the rhythm. Like I do feel like I've got it all kind of covered. So, I feel like my life is continual training, you know?
Yeah, I love that. Before we wrap things up, if anybody wants to, and we'll put this in the show notes, of course, but if anybody wants to connect with you, especially if they're local to our area and, they either resonate with your story or they might need your support, is there a way that we can share for people to be able to connect with you?
Yeah, well, my one website that I have is drsaralaneod.com, which is kind of where I have a little bit of everything of what I do. That's not you can find my actual office website through there as well, but that website kind of encompasses all of the different things that I do and put together. So
Perfect. All right. Awesome. So thank you. Thank you. This has been like such a great conversation. I knew it would be based on obviously everything that we've kind of gone through over the last couple of months, but really thinking back on everything that you did on the mountain, 36 hours, 15 laps, 25 plus miles, like that is obviously the main event. But what I keep coming back to is everything underneath all of that or behind all of that that got you there, the years of mindset work that you've gone through, that you continually do, the strength, the fueling that allowed your body to hold up. And then of course she's going to get one more shout out, meeting a stranger named Jolene. I feel like I remember that song, like Jolene. Anyway, I won't say anymore. But anyway, her showing up exactly when you needed her.
Yeah,
perfect,
I feel like
yes.
that's like the thread throughout our entire conversation today, that none of this happens in isolation. And that's something that you kind of kept talking about. You've brought your practice, you've brought your training, and then you kind of found your people along the way. And then what happens is then the mountain asks you to use all of it all together at one time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what, that's life.
Yep. So thank you for sharing, for being so open with us on the physical work, the Dispenza work, the unproductive thoughts, all of it. And like we said, if you want to connect with Sarah, learn more about her work that she does at Focus Center for Vision and Learning, we're going to drop her website that she mentioned in the show notes so that you can find her.
Yeah, and for anybody and everybody listening, whatever your own mountain is, definitely listen to Dr. Sarah. One step at a time, right? And you really can do anything that you believe you can do. So we do hope that this conversation gave you something to carry up the mountain with you. As always, Lauren and I know that you have a choice as to how you spend your time, and we are thrilled that you chose to spend it with us. Until we meet again, happy listening.